thank you for what you are doing in us and through us. We love you, we honor you, and we know that you have a purpose and plan for all of us to understand why, Father, we let people in when we should keep out, and we kick people out that we should let in. So we pray that we can learn how to have healthy boundaries so that the right people enter and the right ones exit. We love, honor, and praise you in Jesus' name, amen. I don't have the full picture up as usual, so if you have a question, just come off mute and go for it. So, again, this is our base scripture, Acts 7 and 12. And our hope is that we would have you guys get up and get out of toxic relationships. We talked about, man, what did I do? Uh, Man, I skipped three screens. This was the definition for a review for what unbound meant. Really trying to get free from a life without boundaries. A life without boundaries means that you're like a train off the track. And so we're hoping that we can set some healthy boundaries and get things done. We liken the boundaries to a house with boundaries, and I'm going to take that a little bit further. We become unbound when we deal with anxiety, feeling unloved, unappreciated, feeling like a victim, and a host of other things that make us do things that we would not normally do. So, this is a little exercise. I want you to get a sheet of paper and you see these um, 7 areas. Where would you put, who do you put in these different areas? Just for time, what's the difference between who you put and how they get to level 7 versus um, how they uh, get to a level 6? How do you make that determination? Do people just go from being a stranger to you letting them in? Or what's that look like? What's the difference between these two levels, 5 and 6? Who's in level
So,
7? Sorry, not 5 and 6, 6 and 7.
those levels don't exist for me.
What do
You're
you?
either a 6 or 7. She's asking the difference between
That's
six and
okay.
seven.
She can answer if none of those levels exist. Go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, you're either a 1 or a 7.
Okay.
Maybe a 2, but there's not really a honestly 1 through 6 are all the same to me.
Okay. Okay. So you're either in or you're out. Okay. Anyone else want to share? Okay.
We have a hug that we do, a side hug, you
Who's
know,
we? Who's we?
we, the church folks from which
Okay.
I came, that would be considered appropriate, to
And
hug.
what level is that?
Um, it's just if somebody tries to embrace you in that way.
Right, but is that a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7?
Oh, I feel like that's a stranger at church. You're just welcoming them rather
Okay.
than press your body up against them. You do a little side hug, a pat, something like
Okay.
that. When they force you and go, look at your neighbor and hug your neighbor or tell your neighbor, whatever, and you're forced to fellowship, that kind of thing.
Okay.
I think for me, I
Can you step back so we can see your face? Thank you.
I um I definitely have these different levels. Um I definitely have these different levels, and not very many people are at number 7. Uh
So,
grant and but the difference between 6 and 7 is like the difference between red and purple. No, those are actually pretty close. No, on the picture,
Okay.
the outer red. So in number terms, the 1 and 6, like that's the space between 6 and 7 for me.
Okay, so you're like Amanda. They're either in or out.
No, because I'm not going to treat a number 1 the way that I treat a number 6. I'm not giving a stranger, someone that's in the stranger space, I'm not giving them a hug. There's no hug circle there. A far away hug is different than hug circle. And by like all of those are different levels for me. It's just that 6 and 7 are way more far apart than 1 through 6.
Okay, so what you're saying is, what I hear you saying is you have all 7 levels, but they're all not equally spaced.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, well, we're going to see this again.
I was gonna say I don't have the right boundaries within those levels.
Ex
I
Explain.
I couldn't say there was a delivery here, but so like I don't feel like I should be hugging on strangers. But you know what I'm saying? It happens. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah. And private circle, what's that supposed to be? Somebody you're intimate with?
Whatever you define a private circle as, well, it could be a friend that you talk to. Maybe that's
Oh
it.
yeah, I think that my boundaries with them aren't cool either. I think that my private circle boundaries are not cool either because I be talking to them about I just feel like I be going too far. I talk about too much stuff where that's not appropriate, and that I didn't feel I felt personally attacked because you wrote the oversharer thing, and I know you're talking to me, and that's okay because I need help. But uh, that private circle thing, even that I go too far with. So it's like
Okay.
it's not a good there's not good boundaries within those spaces because I'll start talking to a stranger like where'd you get that shirt at? I used to have a shirt like that. Like it's not good. I'm just saying it's not good.
Well, and that's the reason why we're all here,
Mhm.
because we have issues with our boundaries, so it's not a problem. Hopefully, we can move a level or several levels over time once you understand what you need to do. So, we had people, 9 people to be exact, to take the test. And so, if you took your test, I put myself on there. Laxed is a good one. And then we had 2 people that were loose. And we'll just discuss what that looks like. But most people are right around the limited area. Most of the class is right there. And I'm going to give you definitions for that. But the good news is no one's locked. No one got that they are locked. And the thing about being locked is really that you're in prison. You don't let anyone in, but the problem is you can't get out. And so we had no one locked. So we really are going to focus on the limited and the loose. The loose, we hope, will move to limited, and hopefully the limited can move to lax. So that's your going to hopefully be your goal, is to move up either a notch, or if you're really high up and limited where you're really close to being loose, which I don't think so. I think the highest score was like 36 in the limited area. And so you really do have room. And the lowest one was 22. So you're really the 22 person are a couple points away to having healthy boundaries. So that's how that goes. So I'll tell you what those things mean. But the
Are you
bottom
gonna
line,
tell us our scores?
I thought you, okay, I thought you,
Well, mine doesn't have to be private. Maybe I should stop right there because that's an issue for me too, speaking for other people.
no, I can tell you,
I would be okay with people hearing my score.
I can say that in the seven people who are limited is Latay, Amanda, Q, Sharon, Wendy, Alyssa, and Teresa. You all, those are the ones who return scores. If you didn't return your score, then of course you're not here. And then the ones that are loose is Des and Shelley. Okay. I can send you your specific score so that you know specifically where you are. Or Paige will do that just to send back the scores for people. You can probably just remove the contact information page and just send out the Excel spreadsheet with their scores.
Okay.
Um, and so that's where we are. And so when you look at the score sheet, the page will send back out, you'll know where you are. But the bottom line is anything but above this line is unhealthy. And so that's why we're here. We're trying to get below the line. We're trying to get so that we have healthy boundaries. We know how to say no. We know how to say stop. We know and not feel bad about it, not feel guilty because you're telling people no. Okay. So this is what the various lines mean. I like this little score sheet because I like the line. So this is like I said, lax is less than 20. These are the they call it rigid, but I had to stay with L, so I call it locked. So all of my letters are the same. They call it healthy, I call it lax. So these are my terms, not the psychology terms on that perspective. But you can look at this. Healthy boundaries has a dotted line, which means that they let people in and they let people out, but it's with control. It's evenly matched. You have balance. Where most of you are here with limited is here's the definition. For limited, you have limited boundaries, merges with other people's boundaries. And so a lot of times you take on them, they take on you, and it's kind of a swishing around of boundaries. You kind of bleed into each other. And so really when you're loose, you're loose. You just kind of come and go. And I want to give you a deeper definition in this. This is just kind of a summary. You're limited, sorry, not loose. A loose one is they are kind of squishy boundaries. They don't know who to let in and who to let out. And so we'll get into the what that actually looks like. And like I said, the rigid is a person who's just walled off. They're totally closed. And that's why I say the rigid or the locked is people that are locked in. They don't let people inside of their walls. And so I'm going to spin a page on each of these. And when Paige sends this out, you can look at these definitions a little bit closer so that you can know one where you are and then one where you need to get to. And I have some examples of some things that you can do with each of these boundaries to set these limits. So this is the first one. This is where we all want to be. We want to be at this place called healthy boundaries. This means you are aware of what you want and what you need in your life. You respect that you do not have to let everyone into your life. You don't have to be a person that just says, "Come on, you can be my friend," and whatever. You allow people that you choose into your personal space. People don't force their way into your personal space. It's your choice. You have structures built in. So there's a door, and we'll look at that house example out. I'm kind of going to be giving you overkill and what that looks like. But just think about this. Your house has a door, it has windows, and it has four walls. We'll be getting back to that specific thing later, but we have to understand, and we'll just start with the fencing is what we're going to start with today. If you think about this boundary is the fencing and your body is the house. And we're going to spend time just thinking about this fencing and who you let in and who you let out this fence. And so this these examples are using doors, windows, and walls. So if you understand this about what a healthy looks like, you'll better understand when we get to your slide what unhealthy looks like. So what a healthy looks like is that the door only has a knob on one side so that you can keep people out who are healthy for you to have in your life. So you have a door, you can open it, you can close it, you can lock it, and the door is under your control. The knob, the door is under your control. The window, so that you can see who's coming and who's going, and you can decide because you're looking through the window if I want to let them in. You can see them coming from afar, you see them with your eyes, and you're like, I'm discerning that this person is not somebody for me. Just by looking at them, the backs of your neck climbs up, or when you're looking at someone, you discern that, no, that's not a person. Or you can ask God. There's a lot of different ways you can discern by looking at somebody if that's a healthy person to have in your life. And when you look at people, you set the boundaries. Like, I'm only going to talk to you once a week. I'm on don't call me but once a week. Don't call me but once a month. I'm not going to call you every day. If you call me every day, I'm not going to pick up the phone. You have to set those boundaries, okay? By looking and by opening the door. If you tell somebody, I'm only going to talk to you once a week, and they call you every day and you pick up the phone, you violated your own boundary. You can't stop people from calling you, but you surely can stop yourself from picking up the phone because it's your boundary that says, I'm not talking to you every day. Don't call me 3 times a day. I'm not going to talk to you. And then when they call you 3 times a day and they get mad, you said, I told you, I'm only going to talk to you once a week, and that once a week is on Wednesday. If you call me on Tuesday, I'm not going to talk to you. You make those choices. It might sound kind of harsh, but you have to put boundaries around yourself because there's all types of people that will latch on to you and suck up your time and suck up your life. And you'll be like, well, what happened? And then the four walls are used to protect your heart and your inner chambers of your life, the intimacy that you have, the reverence, the healing. This protects your internal beings. We'll get into those four walls when we're talking about trust and we're talking about all the areas that we'll be doing studies on. This is really trying to protect your heart. But you have to go through a whole bunch of different levels to get to your heart. So that's what healthy looks like. Any question on what healthy looks like? Okay.
I wanted to make a comment that, that's kind of unrealistic. I don't know anybody that does that.
Does
Um,
what?
that says you can call me once a week on Wednesday.
I do.
The
I do that.
apostle,
I
I,
do that.
I'm one I'm one of the people that call you all the time. And I want to know, when have you put that boundary in place with me?
I haven't put that boundary in place with you because I don't always pick up the phone. Uh, there's times when I don't pick up the phone and I call you back a day or two later.
He hasn't communicated that boundary. You
Someone.
I don't, and let's say you're not at the point where you call me like every day, three
someone.
times a day.
So I feel like what I don't know if maybe the part that is not being connected with what you're saying and what Latay's saying is you're saying that are you saying that you have to have these boundaries set in your own mind? Are you supposed to communicate these boundaries to the other person? Because what Latay is saying is you're not communicating these boundaries to her, but you are just having these boundaries. So
I
what?
I have communicated boundaries to people that call me 3 times a day. I have communicated to that. What I'm saying to
Oh,
Latae is she's not one of those people that calls me every day, 3 times a day. So I haven't set that boundary. That's what I'm saying.
I see. Well, I don't do
Wait,
that. Sorry.
I'm hearing a couple different
Somebody
people.
else saying something. Sorry.
Uh, did you finish what you were saying, Latae? Because I heard two people talking.
I can wait.
Okay, go ahead. I guess it was Paige. I mean, I don't know who was talking because two people talked at the same time.
It was me, but I have a question on something else. I mean, it's on this slide, but keep going, Latay.
I was
Oh,
just gonna say, who does that? I don't have anybody in my life that does that, but well, that tells me that. But I do have someone who's dealing with a mental health crisis right now in my family that I've had to say, do not call me at this time, or I've had to block them because they continue to violate that boundary. But that's only after incessant calling, like at least 10 times a day, or the time of the calling is just way out of sorts. But like just a regular person that I'm talking to, and they are getting on my nerves, which is rare. Um, I don't I don't say, hey, don't call me. You know what I'm saying? I don't say that. I don't put restrictions on people like that. And it's weird that you even said it, because I thought about it today. I thought about saying, hey, to a specific person, hey, let's carve out a time that we talk to each other, rather than um, dragging a text conversation out all day, because I'm not into that.
Well,
You know what I'm saying? It's consuming.
what I'm saying is when you have healthy boundaries, you do have the right. If you're doing it or not is another thing. Do people do it? Yes. Just because you don't know people that doing it doesn't mean that it's not being done. Just because I haven't done that to you, it just means that I haven't done it to you, but it doesn't mean that I haven't used that, because I have used that on people on the team. And so it just really depends on the person. But like Manda says, do I tell the person? Yes, the person knows that this is the boundary. Don't call me after 9 o'clock. She knows that. And if she calls me or texts me after 9, she knows I'm not going to answer. She says, oop, it's after 9. I'm sorry, bye. And so they know. They know the rule. Go ahead, Paige. Paige?
Yeah, sorry. So my question is, can do all of these things, all of these bullet points have to happen at the same time? Like, you do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
Well, I don't think necessarily they have to happen at the same time, because you could be at a place where you're not looking out the window and you come to a door and your door don't have a window. But as soon as you open the door, you now have a window where you can discern what's actually happening. Um, and at all times, you should be protecting your heart. You should not be opening up your heart. And that's how come I'm trying to move out a little further, because at this point, you've already crossed some boundaries. With these psychological definitions, you've already come past my fence. Before you even get to my door, I have boundaries. Before you even get to my door. And so I'm just giving you the definition for this psychology, but I'm going to little couple more slides. I'm going to take it out a little bit further to take care of those 7 layers, so that you kind of know where you're going. And it's at that 7 layer that I for me, that these things begin to happen: the doors, the windows, and walls. But I have a whole bunch of levels before you even get to my door. I won't even let you in the gate, right? Does that make sense, Paige?
what? You're saying that, what? Sorry.
I'm
You're
saying
saying you're saying that there are things that has to be done in order for those bullet points to even happen.
for me, for me,
Okay.
before you come to my door and I let you on my private property, there's going to be some things that happen. It's almost like before you get to your apartment, you have an electronic fence that you make a choice if you're going to let that person in or not. If it's
Oh,
somebody that's going to abuse you and somebody that's rough, you're not going to give them the access code to get to your fence, to even get to your door,
I see.
right? But if it's a delivery man, you might open the door for him, but you won't give him the code. But
Gotcha.
me, you'll give the code to. You see the difference?
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely helped. Thanks.
Yeah. So for me, I have a fence before I get to the door is what I'm saying. But
Gotcha.
in these definitions, they start at the door.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep, that makes sense.
Okay, go ahead,
Thanks.
Lete.
How do I do it nicely?
We'll get to that. Let's just,
Okay.
yeah, we're going to get to that. I'm just trying to understand where we are, and we'll get to how do you get to that point of communicating.
Because I'm doing it tonight.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll give you some pointers. This is the limited. Okay. Let me get rid of this. Shoot. Where is this? Out the way. You are a person that is forever adjusting to another person's plans. This is most of the class and is usually stretched too thin. You only have time for yourself when you are not meeting other people's needs. This is the loose. This is where 7 of you are that took the class. Now, this is what those doors, windows, and walls look like. Your doorknob, instead of being on the inside of your house, it's on the outside where they can just open and close the door. They can let themselves in, let themselves out. They have a key to your door. So that means they control your experience. You can be in your house and they can just walk in. Hey, Charlene, how you doing? Wait, how'd you get in? Your door was open, girl. I just came in and let myself in with the lock, with my key. That's what this doorknob on the outside means. They have a key to just have full access to you without you even giving that permission. Your windows are covered, so you can't even see in or out because you don't even see that you have boundaries. You don't even see that it's a violation. You don't even notice because it's just so loose. You're just kind of going with the flow. And the 4 walls are in disrepair, so you're very passive and you're over empower other people's position. So do you have questions since this is where most of you are? Does this look like your life for the
I don't agree with the part about you can't see in or out
okay.
because I can see things coming from afar. Sometimes I can recognize a setup and say, don't come over here with that mess. You know what I mean? But oftentimes the setups that I recognize are ones that I've already fell for before.
Right.
So I know I can predict that you're going to ask me to borrow some money again and not and act like you don't owe me and not never pay it back, or you know what I'm saying, that whatever it is that I know your game. So
Well,
that's the kind of times that I can see. But what are you meaning? Like we're oblivious?
so
Like we're
what
seeing
that
it, but we're
mean
not paying attention?
what that means with these boundaries, for that person, you might be rigid and locked where you're not letting them in or out because they have now proved themselves that they're not trustworthy. So you might lock them out. So these boundaries can change based on the person and the relationship and the lack or of trust. Um, and you can actually be healthy if you have a person that's been beating you up. It's healthy to tell them to stay away. So it you don't have to say for everyone you're always in one position. You can slide based on another position. So for example, for a while I had unhealthy boundaries when it related to my family because I got to the point when I got back home. I'm the youngest and I'm, the baby of the family. My dad expected some things from me. And so I had some unhealthy things. I let some things happen. And I don't know, several years ago, I realized I was a grown up and, had that talk with my dad. And our relationship got better because I was now able to voice my thoughts and my opinions. And I wasn't a little girl anymore. And so I had to now stand up and set my boundaries. And so there's people that you can be like that. You can have family members that you're tight with, and then other people that you have healthy boundaries. This is just a general definition. So when you're looking at people and in general, this is what it looks like. Okay. Does that help, Late? Okay, loose. This is 2 of you. Head loose. You are a person that is forever adjusting to another person's plan. you're not meet you're only have time to meet did I not change that? Uh yeah, I have to change that first sentence. You are a rescuer. This is where it was supposed to start. I was supposed to take this out. So this person is a rescuer for everyone. It's a doormat. People are abusive to you. You may turn to coping mechanisms because of the stress. You have little time for yourself and self-care because you have too much on your plate. So scratch this first paragraph. I was supposed to delete that. And it's just supposed to be this paragraph. So here, your door is broken. Your windows are shattered and your walls are in disrepair, yet you lack the ability or confidence to make any repairs. And so this is a place where you don't even know how to begin to set boundaries because every time you do, you back down because you're just too tired to do anything to try to fix it and you just give up. So that's what this loose boundary is. Okay? And then no one was in this column. This was rigid. You have become emotional unavailable so that no one can hurt you again. This person has been hurt in the past, so they no longer allow anyone in. So this house has no doors, windows, and they have thick walls. This is a person locked in their own prison, but they call it home. And so no one was in here. And I have a link here that you can look and actually see the full article on these things. They won't use all the same terms, like I think they use rigid and I use lock, but you'll get the idea of this. And they might not have some of these bullet points. I've added and changed them for my own for our purposes. So
So I feel like I I do this to myself. I do this to myself 100%. And the reason why I do that to myself is because that limited slide,
mm,
that it's it's um it's like I have no control. I have no control over anything that's happening. And because I feel like I don't have any control, I just lock myself
hmm
out to all of it. Like I disconnect myself with people. Remember me telling myself that I don't need anyone, I don't need
hmm
this, I don't need that. I did that to myself
hmm
because all because I didn't have boundaries or I didn't know how to deal with people. I didn't know how to deal with myself. And so I put myself in this locked place.
you have put yourself in a locked place, but you have learned to open up your door. You know, you've learned to allow people to come in. Now you're just playing with the game of what's too much and what's not enough. I think that's where you are now. And I think that's why you're at the loose stop because you were locked, but you wanted to change,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a constant battle to not go back there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and hopefully by the end of this class, I mean, you're far from that now. I mean, the first time, we went through this, you were closer to this than you're closer to the healthy. I think you had what, a 36 or something. So you're a lot closer to being healthy than you are here of being locked, right? So
Yeah.
the whole thing about these boundaries you have to understand is this Proverbs 4:23. You got to keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it will flow the issues of life. When you let people in or let people out, like, let's just say that you're locked. You're locked because of the hurt, because of you don't want to get hurt again, because you don't want to go down that path again, because you don't trust yourself, you don't trust people. And so you lock your heart, and this is how you're keeping it. But like I said, when you keep your heart, you start getting isolated, you start feeling lonely, you start feeling depressed. And then, you start getting all these other things. You might start overworking, you might be a workaholic. You'll start using coping mechanisms. But the bottom line is your heart is breaking. And having boundaries is so that you can keep your heart and still have relationships. The hardest thing about understanding boundaries is getting over the fear of what the other person might think. That in and of itself is a boundary violation because you can't stop people from thinking what they think, but you're letting what you think they think stop you from talking. And that's why you're locked down because you're not free to communicate. You've got to give yourself the freedom to communicate and know it's okay if they get mad. That's their choice. You're not doing it so that they get mad. You're doing it so that you can have peace in your heart. That's what boundaries are for. So that you can have peace in your heart and have good relationships with people without overstepping their boundary or you or them overstepping yours and having that ability to keep each other's space. When you begin to exert your boundaries and you stick with it, people actually do respect them. And if they don't, you just cut them off. You cut them off by sticking to what your boundaries are. You don't cut them off and say, like, never talk to them. Although there are people that I had to do that at the direction of God, or particularly in ministry. In my personal life, I guess a lot of times the ministry people in my personal life kind of overlap because if you have access to me, you have access to me. Um, but I don't think anyone in my personal life I've ever cut off a relationship because of boundary violations or something that they did horrendously. But you have control over that. You might have boundaries for ministry, boundaries for family, boundaries at work. I have different boundaries at work because I'm a supervisor and I can only do certain things. Being a supervisor and a manager, you use lines you can't cross, and so you have different things that you do at different times with people. But you still have to control that. Yes, somebody's about to say something. Okay. So I told you I was going to have this thing come back. These are the 7 layers. And what I did is I made it so that this is the property line. Like I was telling Paige, you have this front fence. This is your entry point to come into your property. The boundaries that they were talking about are in your house already. But what we're going to be doing is I'm going to have you do boundaries that's going to allow you to start all the way out here and to begin to move closer and closer in. And so C is a gate. We see the A part is your private areas, who you're going to let into your private area where these fences are. And then here, the B part is public. And so you have to really decide where these people fit in the picture. And so I'm going to hit enter, and these are the various places that these things are. And these numbers are going to move so that you can see where one is, two, three, four, five, six, seven in this picture. Okay. Oh man, what happened? I went back. Okay, so one you see is all the way out here. Okay. So when you think about relationships, this is where people are. This is where you should keep them. If you have a person that's a stranger, they're like nowhere near your house. They can be all the way over here for that matter. The bottom line is they're outside of your space. You don't have any control over those people because they're outside of your space. You can't you shouldn't be telling them stuff because they're totally outside of your space. They're a stranger. They're not even in your space. Same thing here. They're a little bit closer to your house, but this is a boundary violation when you let a number two, a stranger, in a stranger space into your bedroom. No, you can't do that. That's in your private area. You've already let them past your gate. You let them on your external boundaries, and now you have many internal boundaries. No, we have to learn how to set each and every one of these areas, which we will learn how to do, so that you know how to move people. And how you move people is your choice. And how many circles you have is your choice. I'm not going to say you have to have 7 circles, but you're going to determine what those spaces are. But I hope that you would gain out of this that you have different levels, and your one is not the same as a 7, or you only have they're a stranger or they're come in my bedroom. There has to be some other limits to that, and that's what we'll learn how to do. Same thing, wave circle. They're coming closer, but you still have no control. They're still not in your personal space. They're still in your public space, and they have every right to cross the street. They have every right to walk down the street. You still don't have any say. Now, soon as now your neighbor has a shared wall. This is someone that's a little bit closer to you, but still, they could be a far away. I don't hug my neighbors. I don't go up to, hey, but they if we choose to go out to dinner, there's certain things that I'll tell them. My neighbor invited me over her house. She wanted me to see her house she just built. I didn't go and just, lay down and walk around the house and do whatever I wanted to. It's a neighbor. It's in her private areas, but it's still I'm treating her like a public person. I'm gonna watch her going through my house and, whatever. When you come to 6, when you come to a circle hug, this is for me when people are starting to now come into my personal space, and I can choose the entry point of when you let them in to my personal space. When am I going to let them into my personal space? Because sometimes people might come in through my rear yard. That's an intruder. That's a thief. That's someone that's trying to hurt me because I have no access point here. But if someone comes through my back door, that's going to be someone I'm going to treat hostile because I did not give you access. But when they come in and I give them access to this entry point, my entry point to come into my personal space is trust. If I don't trust you, I'm not going to let you in. I'll talk to you, I'll be nice to you, but I'm not letting you in to my personal space. And that's what we have to learn for you. What's your entry point? I don't know what yours is, but that's what we're going to come up with. How are you going to let people in the gate? What's going to be your criteria? What's the criteria of your property line? What are your walls? I'll show you mine next week, my walls and my entry points, because I have this house drawn for me, for my boundaries. And so you can have an example. I'm just trying to give you an upfront look at what this looks like because this is a lot to think about. If you only have 1 and 7 and you have all these spaces, this can be overwhelming to think about. But if you don't think about it and you're treating everybody like a 7, you see why you might be kind of stressed and kind of loose with your boundaries because you don't really know how to treat people. Any questions on the way that this picture is depicted?
I just had a comment about everybody up until number 5. I don't want them to know where I live at all. And number 7 is the only one I want to know where I live. Number 6, if they so happen to be in the neighborhood and see me, I'll probably be mad about it that they found out where I lived because now they might try to come over. But the only people that I really want over are number 7, if that
Well,
makes sense what I'm saying.
there are ways to that's really saying who comes in your entry point. Who comes in to see is going to be very important for you because that's going to have access to your house. And as you see from my explanation, Late, 7 is the only one that's inside of the gate. All the rest of them are outside of the gate. I can't stop people from walking past my house. That's a boundary violation. I can't stop them from doing that. They can look me up on internet and find my house and they can drive by. I can't stop people. That's a boundary violation. Okay? But when it comes to coming into my personal space and my property line, I have everything. I have every right to make those assertions. Okay? And so we'll probably look at just these boundaries, the A's, um, maybe some B's, but definitely the C, who gets access. Okay? So that you can say what are the walls, and then we also have to get into your internal house, um, because there's some doors, windows, and roofs to your house that you have to also protect. Once people are there, where are you letting them into your house? So that's going to be a whole nother level of access. Yes, Wendy.
No, I'm just joking around here, but I can attest to Apostle's boundaries because I still remember when she was visiting me in California and she was on our patio asleep,
Mhm.
and I went out to wake her to let her know that dinner was ready, and she opened her eyes and drew back her fist, and I was like, "Whoa! I just wanted to, gently wake you up for dinner." But that's what it reminded me of it. I'm like, "Well, you know what I mean?" It's like you guard your space, you keep your boundaries, and it's like there's no one's going to come up and
Yeah, she was almost got a black eye.
I did.
Okay. So this is kind of a list for you guys to look and see what healthy boundaries are and unhealthy boundaries. It's just a statement. You can use this to kind of help you. Uh, it wasn't necessarily the test scores that you tested, but these are just some questions about what's healthy and not healthy. You can kind of just go down sharing too much information. If you share too soon, that's not healthy. That's an unhealthy boundary. So that you can kind of look at these things and understand what healthy is and what unhealthy is. And there's 2 pages of these boundaries with the yes and no on them. I didn't plan on spending time looking at each of them because you can have them, but do you know how to identify these boundaries? That's what you need to understand, how you identify where you are and where your boundaries lie. We'll go into writing some boundary statements. I think it's 5 columns that I came up with about what you need and what that looks like, and you're just going to fill out this table, and that's going to become your boundary statement. Hopefully it'll be easy for you guys to fill out, so that you can start writing these things down. So the types of boundaries, I'm going to get into that. I think it's 8 of them. Physical boundaries. Everything has to do with protecting something. All boundaries, if you think about boundaries, you're trying to protect something. So your personal boundaries, you're trying to protect your personal space, right? This is some tips with all of these. I'm not going to read them because you'll have them, because I want to get to the point where you can start doing the homework and how we're going to break the class out. But with each of these boundaries, I'm giving you some tips how to help you set those boundaries. So when you're writing your boundary steps, you can go back, and if you're going to write physical boundaries or sexual boundaries or financial boundaries, whatever boundary you're going to write, you'll have this as a guide to kind of help you write those boundaries. Emotional boundaries, protect your emotions, protect your opinions from other people so your opinions don't get absorbed by other people. With emotional boundaries, you have to recognize your triggers. You have to be very self aware of what you're actually going through, because if you put your emotions and you reflect it back on the other people, you're angry, for example, and you're saying, "Don't get angry at me." And the person's like, I'm not angry. I'm feeling, yes, you are. And you're like, well, actually, no. You've now projected your boundaries onto someone else, I mean, your emotions on someone else, which is a boundary violation. You can only stress what you're thinking, what you're feeling. It's a boundary violation to tell somebody what they're thinking. And so if you have these emotional problems, this might be some things that you have to be aware of. And if you have a category and you need help writing those boundary statements, I can help you. You can set up a meeting and I can help you write those statements using the template that I give you once you get to that template. Maybe we can do a workshop or something like that during class and just work on one boundary statement together as an example, fill out the whole sheet, and that way when you guys go back, you can do it by yourself. You can do something like that.
Sorry,
Verbal,
quick question. You
uh-huh.
said that it's a boundary violation to tell someone else what they're thinking.
Yeah,
Whose boundary are you
there.
violating?
You're violating their boundary because you can't tell people what they're thinking.
Well, that's assuming that that's a boundary that they've set for themselves.
No, you okay, when what they're thinking, since you can't tell what they're thinking, it's a boundary violation because you're assuming something that they've never stated. And that's their responsibility to communicate to you what they're thinking. If it's something like this is how you would express it. I'm sensing or I feel like we're having this debate right now. Are you feeling a certain type of way? And you can say whatever that way is. That's asking them the
So
question.
I'm not saying that I agree with telling a person how their thinking is right or wrong or whatever. I'm just saying that it seems as if we can't tell someone there, it seems as if there aren't assumed boundaries, unless there are. Maybe it's not a boundary violation for a person. Like we can't assume that that's a boundary for them.
We can assume it's a boundary simply because
We
their
can't
mind
tell
isn't
other people how to feel.
or
I
think.
mean, I know that we can't tell other people how to feel. I'm not disagreeing with that, but we can't just assume boundaries for other people.
You're
Also,
not. You're not assuming boundaries for other people. What I'm saying is you're putting your thoughts on someone else. So for you, for you to express what you're feeling and thinking is a better way to handle a situation because you have control over that. When you don't have control over the other person and that other person isn't violating you, that's a boundary violation because you're assuming that other person's position. Is it written down? No. For example, if you're walking down the street and a stranger comes and hits you on the back, on the butt, or squeezes your boob, that's a boundary violation. You
for
never,
me, but
huh?
that's not a boundary violation for that's not a like a worldwide or a boundary violation for everyone. Some people welcome that type of attention.
Well, listen. Okay, so it's a boundary violation for you. So what you would say is, "Hey, I don't like because you squeeze my boob that you don't do that." That's your response because they broke a violation. That person may have never known you, saw you, or anything, but you're standing up for your boundary by letting them know that they violated you.
I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying in
Okay, I
terms
don't
of
understand.
speaking speaking for other people is a wrong thing. The only part that I'm maybe it's the wording that's getting me caught up, but just in that example, we can't assume that it's a boundary violation for a person to come into their personal space.
Okay, so
Just like
think of it this way, and correct me if I'm wrong. The way I see it is, so what you're thinking is that purple color. and that first diagram that you showed, and how it had the different layers, and in the core was the purple color.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're thinking is in that purple. If you are on the red, if you're on the red side, which is the first layer, you can't, it's a boundary violation because you're going inside of their purple to tell them what they're thinking.
But that's assuming.
I
Okay.
understand, Amanda. Let me put it to you this way. This is a real life example. I was in Cambodia and a person came up to me and literally they squeezed my boob. I was here in the store and he came up and he hit my butt. It was a different race. Normally that's a boundary violation. I'll take the one that was here in America. His wife was right there. He came up to me, hit me on my butt. His wife was there. He was there. He never thought anything of it. I'm like, okay, I guess that's like okay. It's like in basketball. You hit somebody's butt. It's not like they're hitting your butt walking down the street. I assessed the situation and the wife was there, he was there. He didn't have any certain type of way that he did it. I did not exert my right for him crossing my personal space because I assessed the situation. I looked through the window, I discerned what's there, and that was for them, just like in Cambodia, that was a normal thing. That's what you're saying, right? That because
Sorry.
it's
Sorry.
normal, it's normally my boundary violation, but it might not be one for them.
Correct.
I understand. I understand perfectly. And so for me in that instance, I had to discern if it was a violation or if I'm in a culture that that's acceptable. When I was in Cambodia, well, that must be acceptable. When I was at this store and I discerned it, it was acceptable. If I'm on the basketball court, it's acceptable. But if I'm walking down the street and I discern that it's not, I'm using my window to look out, then I can say something. The difference between those scenarios is I'm the one determining my personal boundary because I don't know what theirs is. I know what mine is, and I can excuse it or not.
So you're
That's
saying
a
that the whole speaking up for another person is breaking your own boundary, not theirs.
say it again.
You're saying that, speaking, telling a person how they're thinking or feeling would be a boundary for yourself that you're breaking. You're not necessarily breaking their boundary.
Right, because I can only control my own. I,
Okay.
I don't know what their boundaries are.
That just wasn't clear to me, so I understand now.
Okay, Late. Oh, she left
Can
now.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was just gonna say it sounded like two different things were going on in the conversation. So, um, I was gonna say how I felt like the way that you were saying it was, the way that I was understanding it and receiving it was that you were that here I come and try to project my thoughts onto someone else. Thank you. I'm trying to project my thoughts. Um,
We
um,
were we
so
were
like
we
me.
were
Go ahead.
we were talking about thoughts, but I changed the example to Mary, what
Okay.
she was.
Yeah. So I was. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was thinking of it like projecting my thoughts on somebody. Like when somebody says something and I say, "Oh, so you think I'm stupid? You just don't tell me anything. You think that's when you said that about projecting thought, or you didn't use the word project, but you talked about telling them what they were thinking. I thought of projection of me forcing my perception of what was happening or my perception of what they believed about me onto them. So that to me was, yeah, that's a violation because, yo, don't try to come over here and tell me, you know what I'm saying? And whatever you got going on over there, keep that energy over there. So that's how I took that. But then something else happened in the conversation and you guys were
That's how I
talking
took
about,
it too.
Huh?
okay.
That that's how I took it too.
Yeah.
And then something else happened in the conversation where Amanda, you guys were talking about that might not be someone's boundary. Well,
Right.
see, that's the whole issue. The issue is there are spaces and places and people that need to have boundaries to say, don't rape me or grab or fondle me or grab my butt.
Right.
But because people don't have are too passive or they're rigid or whatever the different groups are, they're not able to speak up for themselves. Then
Mhm.
that's when the law comes into play and says, "Don't do that." I was about to cuss, but don't do this mess. You know what I'm saying? Because in those instances, yeah, somebody that's been molested and they don't have a boundary for being raped or date raped or even their husband raping them when they say no. I'm no, not tonight, honey, and he rapes them anyway. They don't have any boundaries or anything to say that's not okay. That and unfortunately, just because they don't have a boundary doesn't mean there shouldn't be one because that is wrong to do that. And so I was just trying to give clarity on, even though that person might not have the boundary of you can't bust me upside of my head. It's okay. I've been getting busted upside of my
Right.
head for my whole life. You
Yeah.
know, then there's the law that says this is assault or
Right.
this is
And I
groping.
wasn't saying that the action itself was wrong
Mhm,
or right. The only
mhm.
point that I was speaking on was just getting clarity on, are we saying assuming a person's boundary? I wasn't saying that just because they don't have a boundary, we should do this. That's not what I was saying.
Yeah. I'm just saying, what do we do? If they don't,
Well,
we can't. How do
there's
we balance that?
there's different things. There's different levels of protection, right? The area that we're talking about protecting is us personally knowing what our personal space is, not talking about the exceptions of rape, robbery, arson. You know, we're we're not going to go there. Let's just come back because we're talking about relationships, and even when we're saying date rape, there's things that you can do to not getting those situations so that I mean they can spoof you and I mean there's all those exceptions. Let's just get to the exception to the place where we're talking about us that have loose boundaries and we don't know where we begin and another person ends so that we can say that we understand where I begin and where I end, where I can set these normal boundaries. There's always going to be exceptions because there's criminals. Um, but let's just deal with just the general sense of boundaries. That's generally what I'm speaking of for this class. Okay? Oh, she left. I was talking, but she's gone. Mm. Okay, let me continue to get through the boundaries. You have financial boundaries. I'm not even going to read them. You can read them for yourself, but these are the types of boundaries where people are taking advantage of your money. Sexual boundaries, you're trying to protect your sex, your privacy, your intimacy. They say your preferences, but your spiritual and religious boundaries, you need to protect those because people need to honor that. And sometimes you don't and you lay yours aside. So, but there's spiritual boundaries. There's time and energy boundaries that you can do. And there's also digital boundaries that you have to set. So those were the 6 or 8 or 9, I forget how many now, types of boundaries they are. This comes up to our class and the rest of our homework where we were supposed to, and I don't know if you guys did it, to say what areas you wanted to begin to take over and teach. Because of time, because we're at 6 minutes over our class, if you can send me your selections and preferable dates, I can put a schedule together and release that next week so I know what's covered and what's not, so I know what I need to cover. Put how much time you think you're going to need so I can know if I have 2 people together or if I'm going to need something to make that particular class a little more healthy. Okay. I was hoping to get more time to talk about it, but that's okay. We've had good conversations and that's always good. Okay, so that's all I had for class. If you do have your homework, please do send those things in so I know who wants to teach what and get full coverage. Any questions over anything that we've discussed? Sorry, I kind of rushed it, but I'm trying to honor the hour-long class.
I wanted you to just, I don't have a question. I just wanted you to know I have my earpiece in. So
Oh,
even though I walk away, I can still hear you just fine. I'm just not able to talk.
oh, okay. So you heard what I said is then.
Yes, about the, yeah.
I looked up and you weren't there. I'm like, oh, she's gone. Any other questions, comments?
I have some trepidation. It's about us sharing on the subject that we have an issue with. How am I
Okay.
going to tell you guys not to be oversharing? How am I going to teach that when you taught us that I can't help somebody get deliverance from overeating and I'm 500 pounds.
Okay, the reason why it was selected that you would look at the area that you have a problem in, because if you study it, you might be able to overcome it. But if you don't want to do that area, pick something else. Just, we don't have to know if you're dealing with that area. You're just picking an area. Okay?
It's completely obvious, Apostle.
Latoya, I love you.
All right. Well, anyone else? Okay, so Paige,
What's the due date for having this information to you?
well, it was homework for tonight. We were supposed to discuss it tonight, but if you can give it to me, I know before next class, like Sunday, could you guys have it to us by Sunday? Because that way I can arrange it for Tuesday. Is
I
that
can
enough?
stay on after it's time to hang up. I mean, after it stopped recording, please.
Say it again.
May I stay on? Can
Okay.
I stay on after it
Yeah.
stops recording?
Oh, is that okay, Paige? A week,
Yeah,
Sunday, okay?
yeah,
Hear me?
Sunday. I
Okay.
got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Father, we thank you for this time. We thank you for this class and what you have uncovered to us. We have so much to learn about ourselves and boundaries, and I know that you will teach us so that we can be safe and keep our
Yeah,
borders safe. We
I'm sure.
thank you. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen.